In 1990, a research team sends a man named Naren into a place that shouldn't exist. No windows, no doors that make sense. Just endless yellow rooms stacked on top of each other. And a hum in the walls that never stops. He's got a camera strapped to his chest and strict orders to record everything. At first, it's just empty room after empty room. Yellow walls, damp carpet. The kind of silence that makes you want to whisper even when nobody's listening. Then he spots a bundle of cables snaking across the floor, and he follows them. Because that's what you do when you're desperate for a way out. They lead him to a tripod, some storage boxes, a stash of gear. For a second, it feels like progress. He shoves the boxes against the doorway like that's going to stop whatever's out there. Grabs the radio and calls it in. He's gone further than anyone before him. His team is missing, and there's something else in here with him. That's when the noise starts. Something slams into a wall nearby, hard enough that he flinches. It's a bird, stunned, flapping against the yellow paint. He reaches for it and it bolts. He keeps moving, and the rooms start changing character, half-finished furniture, objects bolted to walls at wrong angles. Nothing that makes sense in a place like this. Then a door creaks open behind him, and he turns around to find something is standing there. Not human, not anything he can explain over the radio. He runs, dives into a room dressed up like a tropical island of all things, and slams himself against a door that won't budge. The thing catches him. The footage cuts to black. Back at headquarters, a room full of scientists sits in silence, watching the recording loop. Weeks later, a therapist named Mary stands and watches her childhood home get torn down. There's a strip of concrete out front, with 2 small handprints pressed into it, hers and her mother's, and she can't stop staring at it while the machines do their work. Across town, a man named Clark is trying to keep his furniture store from going under. He's also one of Mary's clients. In session, he tells her he wonders if he deserves to be alone. So she has him run through a roleplay. She'll play his ex-wife, the one who kicked him out after one too many drunken fights. He starts talking about how he footed every bill while she coasted through school, how resentment built up year after year. Then Mary brings up the architecture career he never finished, and something in him snaps. He starts screaming at her mid-exercise. She calls it off and tells him that reaction is exactly the point. Now they know what to work on. His assistant manager Kat and her boyfriend Bobby want another shot, but he waves them off. Later that day, an electrician comes by to figure out why the lights keep flickering, and the power bill keeps climbing despite nothing running. Down in the fuse box, they find 3 switches that shouldn't be there. Red, unlabeled, and according to Clark, brand new. Flipping them does nothing. Not yet anyway. That night, Mary's home watching TV, and her own therapy tape commercial airs, which is a special kind of awkward. She's still holding on to that concrete handprint. Meanwhile, Clark, drinking alone in the store where he's now technically living, watches his TV die on its own. Then the lights come on by themselves and flicker out again. Restless, he drives to his old house just to sit outside and stare at it. Mary throws a family gathering, but can't shake the grief she's still burying over her mother, and it spikes into a full panic attack that sends her running to hide and dose herself with medication from a locked cabinet. The next night, Clark's TV glitches, and for one frame, it shows him a flash of the exact same yellow rooms from Naren's footage. Furious, he smacks the set, and that's when he notices the basement lights flickering again. He goes down to kill the power switch by switch, and the only ones that actually do anything are the 3 red ones. They cut every light in the building. When he tries flipping them back, nothing. And that's when he sees it, a thin glowing seam running down the wall. It vanishes the second he gets close. He touches the spot anyway, and his entire body passes straight through the wall. He lands on a yellow floor, surrounded by furniture. His furniture, pieces from his own store, touching the wall a second time throws him right back into his basement. Naturally, he goes back in. This time he starts exploring for real, room after room, until he hits a hallway with a stop sign covered in mirrored, backwards letters. He avoids it, takes a detour, and finds the same bird from the opening, dead on the floor. He keeps going, and eventually hears a voice muttering in different languages. He tracks it to a life-size cutout wired up to a recorder, follows the cable off its back to a locked door, gives up, and notices a loose panel in the wall nearby. Inside it, a bag with tapes, discs, and an ID badge belonging to Naren. There's also a tunnel. He crawls through it into a room where objects are actively sinking into the floor, a whole pile of chairs slowly swallowed. A strange noise makes him call out through the tunnel, and back in the previous room, the tape recorder cuts off and the cutout is hurled apart. He backs away fast, finds a tiny triple-locked door, works the knobs, and squeezes through into the next area, feeling something behind him the entire way. Eventually he loops back to that same mirrored stop sign, uses it to retrace his steps to the furniture pile, and after a panicked scramble, finally finds the way back through the wall, dragging a stool out with him as proof this actually happened. Elsewhere, a researcher watches all of this unfold on a monitor. Exactly like Naren's footage decades earlier. At his next session, sober for 3 days and shaking, Clark tells Mary everything and shows her a hand-drawn map. She assumes it's withdrawal talking and doesn't buy a word. He takes his map back, determined to prove it, and recruits Kat and Bobby, paying them to help. He brings the pair down to the basement, has Bobby film the whole thing, packs supplies, marks the wall, and steps through in front of them. His voice calls back from the other side, inviting them in. Kat refuses at first, thinks it's insane, but Bobby's too curious to resist, and eventually talks her into following. The three of them start filming their way through the rooms. When they hit a narrow sloped tunnel, they tie a rope to Bobby and lower him down. Deep inside is a room stuffed with piles of laundry and an awful smell. Next door, he spots flickering lights, but the rope's too short to reach it. Then something enormous appears in that neighboring room, and Bobby scrambles back up screaming for his friends to pull him out. The moment he's back with them, the rope yanks violently, trying to drag him back down. Kat grabs him, Clark fights the knot, but the rope wins, hauling Bobby straight back into the tunnel while they hear him screaming beneath the floor. The rope then snaps back and slams the bed frame into both of them, dragging them toward the hole too. Camera still rolling, just in time to watch Bobby disappear behind a hatch. Leaving a smear of blood behind, Kat bolts into the dark room after him. Clark hears her scream. The hatch creaks open again, and whatever's on the other side sounds like it's coming back, so Clark bails through a hole in the wall, camera still in hand, crawling through trash until he stumbles into an all-white section of the rooms. He hears something behind him, opens a door back into the laundry pile room, calling uselessly for Kat, then wanders through a room full of sinking couches and a lone crutch, a corridor of kids' toys, and finally a room decorated for Christmas with a tree playing music and mannequins slowly being swallowed by the floor. Behind the tree sits a person in a chair, missing half his body, who flicks on a lamp when Clark says hello. Then a disfigured woman appears and lunges for him. He runs, passes more holiday decorations, bursts through a door into a bathroom, slips on wet tile, and keeps moving until he hits a series of pools. That's when he hears Kat's voice through a wall. He sets the camera down to search for a way to her, and something reaches out and grabs the camera clean out of frame. Cut to Mary's childhood. Her mother, mentally unwell, kept every window papered over. The house perpetually filthy. Young Mary once tried to crack a window open and got caught and scolded. Told the outside world wasn't safe. Adult Mary jolts awake from the memory, right as a door somewhere in her house bangs open. She stares at the handprint again before her phone rings. She lets it go to voicemail. It's Clark, leaving a message saying he's never coming home. Across the city, the researcher watching the footage feed is having dinner with his family when the same cheesy pirate commercial airs on TV, and he recognizes Clark instantly. Mary eventually drives to the store, finds it abandoned, days of mail piled under the door. Downstairs, the basement lights are flickering, and she finds Clark's hand-drawn map pinned up along with the marks on the wall. She watches a fly vanish straight into the concrete. After a long hesitation, she works up the nerve and steps through herself. On the other side, there's no furniture, just empty rooms and that same mirrored stop sign. As she searches, she starts finding pieces of her own childhood home scattered through the space. Deeper in, she finds a pile of chairs and a disturbing drawing on the wall of a monster slaughtering people, with notes scrawled beside it from whoever tried to map this place before. A noise makes her spin around, and Clark steps out of hiding, telling her to keep it down. He explains, almost calmly, that this place is every location that has ever existed. The lights flicker and he tells her not to worry, it's just him. Then wraps an arm around her throat and starts choking her, insisting it's for her own good. Another memory surfaces. Young Mary, watching her mother get taken away to a psychiatric hospital, left completely alone in that house. In the memory, the house itself starts losing detail, dissolving into just another one of these endless rooms. Mary wakes up tied to a chair in a dining room. Clark is setting the table, surrounded by three warped, hollow-eyed figures. He calls it beautiful in its own way, explains that this entire place is built out of visitors' memories, and that every time it gets rebuilt, it warps a little further from the original. He thinks that's an improvement, since these things can't feel pain, and proves it by stabbing one of them, then pulling stuffing instead of organs out of the wound. He serves it up on plates, opens the fridge, and reveals Kat's severed head inside. Mary begs, promises to cooperate, anything, but Clark wants something specific. He wants her to admit he was right. He recreates the roleplay from their old sessions, cuts hair from the mutilated woman and puts it on Mary like a wig, and replays the night his wife threw him out. Calm at first, then spiraling into rage about how it's his house, his money, his right to drink. Mary breaks character, rips off the wig, and tells him the truth. His wife didn't leave because of the drinking or the long hours at the store. She left because he never once took responsibility for anything, always found someone else to blame. Clark crumbles, admits he doesn't want to change, admits he wants to stay here. Mary tells him he can, on one condition: he lets her go. He unties her and actually apologizes, which sends the warped figures in the corner into a panic. That's when the real threat shows up. The creature from the very beginning, now wearing the shape of Captain Clark from the pirate commercial. It's Clark's rage and failure given a body. It grabs the real Clark and starts tearing into him, while Mary flees into a room built to look like her old neighborhood. The exit door won't open. Captain Clark drags Clark's mangled body past her hiding spot, and she barely stays hidden. She scrambles from room to room, jumps across a field of sinking couches, twists her ankle, and slows down just enough for the thing to close the gap. She limps to a door that won't open either, and with the creature closing in, squeezes through a small pet door into another room, just as its hand nearly catches her. She finds herself on the edge of a massive open atrium, the whole structure of this place visible below her. The creature is already pounding the door apart behind her. So she climbs, careful but fast, up a staircase and through a ceiling hatch that gives way and nearly drops her into the void beneath it. On the other side is a room full of her own store's furniture, then a space that's clearly a broken, distorted copy of the shop itself. The exit's blocked. Captain Clark catches up, and she smashes his wooden leg with a coat rack to drop him. But backing away, she bumps a display and sets off a fire alarm, filling the room with fog that turns out to be sleeping gas. She goes down mid-run. She wakes to find the creature on top of her, and pulls the one thing she's carried this whole time, the concrete handprint from her childhood home, out of her pocket and beats it over the head until it shatters. She flees down a passage too narrow for it to follow, reaches for the next door, and is knocked out by men in hazmat suits waiting on the other side. The last thing she sees before blacking out is the empty passage behind her, no monster in sight. She wakes up on a table inside a research facility, being scanned. As they walk her deeper into the complex, she learns they already recovered the creature's body. Behind one door, a warehouse of identical cutouts, dozens of them. Eventually she's left alone with the man from earlier, the one running all of this. He tells her his organization used to build medical imaging equipment before they stumbled onto this place, and that he's spent years since mapping it. He wants her account of everything she saw. She confirms she found the rooms inside the furniture store and shuts down the second he shows her a still frame of Clark standing next to the creature. The camera drifts through more of the rooms, past a wall covered in her own therapy session tapes, past missing person flyers for Kat and Bobby taped up in another corridor. And then the final shot lands on Mary, still sitting frozen in that dining room chair from before, body slowly, quietly changing into something else. Still there, still watching, not going anywhere.